Warning: the following podcast, which contains strong language and mature content, is unsuitable for children or for the faint of heart. The subject matter discussed will be frightening and graphic in nature. Listener discretion is advised.
When you want to hear about the paranormal, you get the Spooked Girls. True crime that makes you hypothermal. With the three Spooked Girls. Stabby snippets will give you dreams. Tara and Jessica will make you along with the Spooked Girls. Bring on the slaughter. We on that haunted ground. Spooked Girls. The three Spooked Girls.
Hey Spooksters, and welcome back to another episode here on Three Spooked Girls. My name is Tara, and as always, I'm here with my cool friend Jessica.
Hello.
Hello. And today, oh my God. Okay. As you guys can see by the title, I'm just dying. We're going to be talking about the dancing plague of 1518. Also, I'm going to preface, I'm sick, so I'm really sorry. You probably noticed it on Sunday's episode, so we're working through it. I got tea. I've been taking medicine for like a week, and we're getting there, but we're at the end, so now I sound like shit. So if you're new, there's your warning. But before we get into that, if you are new here, hello, welcome. Thank you for checking out the show and listening to me whining. Returning Spooksters, welcome back. If you are not hanging out with us on social media, you can find us on all the places. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Threads. Our handle is at Three Spooked Girls, and we also have our amazing Facebook group, Three Spooked Girls Official. That is what we have been mentioning a lot lately because we are wrapping up our Secret Satan gift exchange that is going on this month, and it's been really fun seeing people's little surprises. I'm super excited because my person's getting their stuff this week in 2 shipments, so I'm like, get there safe, get there early, go.
Right?
I'm so excited. But if you're looking for a little place on the internet to hang out with fellow Spooksters and Jess and I, because we are very active in there, go check it out. Come hang out with us. It is fantastic. And if you are a reader, you can join our virtual book club. That is Spookster Literary Society. It's in the book clubs app or in the link tree in the show notes below. This month, we are reading a classic. We are reading Frankenstein, and I have never read it. So I'm really excited to actually read it because it's like one of those books that's been on my bucket list to read. Mm-hmm. I don't know, spooky season comes around and I just forget about it. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm also going to try to read Dracula too. So I want to read some of these. I've never read any of them ever. Like I've watched movies, obviously, but I've never read the books. I have kind of an ambitious TBR for the rest of the year because I have to catch up. So we'll see. I don't want to talk about yours because you're amazing and you already passed it.
Hey, you know what? Audiobooks have changed my whole dynamic of how I interact with books. So I think it's fine.
I love it. I love this for you so much. But if you want to hang out with Spooksters and meet up with us virtually once a month to talk about said book, feel free to join us over there. And if you would like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/Three Spooked Girls. For as little as $1, you get 1 bonus episode a month. We have been doing so much fun stuff over there. We've been doing some choose your own adventure stories. And then also Jess has been doing real or not real weird state laws. We just had one go up last month. We're making our way through it pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. It's been a lot of fun. So I hope you guys are enjoying that as much as we are. And if you would like ad-free episodes the day before, you can start us joining at our $5 tier. But yeah, that's really it. So we are going to get into this. Now, I have heard about this, what I thought was a legend, but it's not. It's truly documented in history by multiple sources. So I find that very interesting. But before we get to the whole plague of it all, let's talk about this area that people lived in because we're going to France today, guys.
Ooh.
You know what I thought of? Because I just rewatched this recently. I kept thinking of Bridesmaids and the whole Paris thing, you know, like just how all that drama and stuff. So I love that movie. Anyway.
It's a great movie.
We're not going to Paris, y'all. We're going to Strasbourg. And this was a major city during the Holy Roman Empire. It sits right on the Rhine River, and it was described as a highway for trade. So in this area, merchants sold wine, grain, cloth, and luxury goods. It had guilds of butchers, bakers, and artisans who were making all kinds of money and did have some political pull. Now, something really cool here in this city is Strasbourg's cathedral. So this structure was completed in 1439, and at the time, its spire, which if you don't know what a spire is, because when I was reading, I'm like, what the fuck does a spire mean? Because I don't know, but it's basically like the whole structure of it. Like think like how the Empire State Building or the Washington Memorial for U.S. people, like how it's like pointed.
Okay.
You know, and obviously a cathedral. We know what cathedrals look like. But anyway, its spire was the tallest structure in the entire world, standing at 466 feet tall, and actually kept that title for over 400 years. It wasn't until 1874 when it would be beat out by St. Nikolai's Church in Hamburg, Germany. And that building, because I'm like, okay, well, how much taller are you, motherfucker? That building was 483 feet. So that is crazy. Super crazy. But I thought it was a fun little fact to include.
I like it. I love fun facts.
Right? And I got more fun facts. I mean, this is kind of like, just like, okay, you know, given the time, guilds often butted heads with the church and people in the aristocracy whole thing, right? Now, there was this thing called the Council of 21, and they ran their civic affairs, but the church was still kind of like that overlord, right? Given, you know, it's the 15th century, so of course. And people basically, this area, think like how the witch trials and that puritanical whole mindset where they took like any kind of sin or witchcraft or anything like that so fucking seriously, right? Well, there was this guy who was like a star preacher, and his name was Johann Geiler von Kaiserberg. Oh my God, sorry. His name is a mouthful, and I'm like, am I going to say this right? But that's close enough. He was an asshole. But he was the star preacher of Strasbourg from the late 1400s until he died in 1510. And he was very much super against any corruption, superstition, you know, all of that shit. And basically people were like afraid of him because he just had such a heavy hammer of a leadership style, I guess we could say nicely. And they had his sermons printed on these little pamphlets, and they were like passed around. And even after he died, people were still so influenced by him. Now, Europe on itself was in this period of transformation. So a year earlier, Martin Luther nailed his 95 thesis to a church door. This was his challenge to church authority, and this spread fast, especially in the cities that had the options for printing presses. You know, they were putting out shit like hotcakes. And Strasbourg was one of the earliest in Europe, actually. There was ideas of reform, fear of hearsay, and dread of divine punishment, kind of all melting together. Also, apparently, there was this thing going on called the Little Ice Age.
Oh.
Yes, and that, as you can figure out, fucked everything up. None of the harvests were successful. None of the crops were growing, you know, so of course the cost for grain and everything like that spiked, so people couldn't afford it, and there was famines hitting the poor. And with that kind of stuff, of course, plagues come up again and again and again, and people are sick, they're dirty, you know, they don't have the sanitation protocols that we have today. Like, there would literally be people shitting in the street, just like all casual, normal, you know, and have disgusting, dirty water. And then they'd be like, why do I have dysentery? Why am I dying? Bitch, you're drinking shit water. That's why.
They didn't know.
They didn't know. And a lot of the normal people obviously were not rich, and any kind of resources available, they weren't getting it, sadly. Now, here's the weird thing. So this whole what sources are describing it as a dancing mania with this plague is Strasbourg wasn't even the first place to deal with it. This goes back centuries even more. So I wrote a couple examples down that actually start as back in the 1020s. Like, that's so weird to say out loud, but way back there.
That literally is.
Yes. And during this time, this phenomenon that's happening, right? It was called choreomania, or St. Vitus's dance, which is interesting. And we'll get more into St. Vitus a little later with Strasbourg. In the 1020s, peasants in Saxony danced outside of a church in Bernburg until they collapsed. And of course, who's shocked, priests just dubbed this up to being demonic possession because it couldn't be anything else. That's fine.
It's the original satanic panic. I get it.
Then in 1237, it was reported that dozens of children in Erfurt danced through the streets until they dropped. And there's another version of this story saying 200 people danced on a bridge over the Meuse until it collapsed, with survivors healed at a shrine of St. Vitus. So that story later is kind of brought up into the story that a lot of us grew up with the Pied Piper. Kind of inspiration for that.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, the recorded biggest outbreak before Strasbourg hit Aachen, I'm probably saying that wrong, I'm so sorry, in 1374. It was said that thousands of people convulsed in the streets, screaming visions of saints and demons. That this mania spread like wildfire down the Rhine to Cologne, Metz, and Frankfurt. Some accounts say dancers had violent reactions to the color red or to pointed shoes. Keep that little nugget in your pocket. Authorities tried exorcisms, pilgrimages, and even music, but often these things made it worse. Now, going through the 1400s, there was some smaller outbreaks that were in Luxembourg, Alsace, I feel like I'm saying that wrong, and Switzerland. And there was also a report specifically in 1428 of a monk in Schaffhausen reportedly had danced himself to death. And in Zurich, a group of women were seized by frenzy when they also came under this whole dancing mania.
Seized by frenzy? I love it.
I know. And then even going into the 1500s, there were some additional cases of some children in Basel. And then in 1551, one single man in Anhalt. So this is going on forever. But we're going to go back to Strasbourg because that's why we're here today. And right away, as soon as this starts, the locals were calling this St. Vitus's dance. So St. Vitus is coming up again. Now, the very first outbreak goes back to one woman. Her name was Frau Trophia, and she was a housewife. And it was just said one day on July 14th, 1518, she stepped into the street and began to dance. No music, nothing going on, just her moving non-stop. She danced for 6 days straight.
Ma'am.
And people just let her do her thing.
Good.
Part of people were like, what the fuck is happening? This is scary. Stay away from me. And some thought she was doing this as like a long performative protest for the church. But then others are like, no, that bitch is cursed. Under any circumstances, Frau would not be doing this right now. So something is fucking going on. And like I mentioned, there was people that recorded this whole thing right away. So there was a quote about her in the Imlin Family Chronicle records, and it said, quote, "A woman began to dance and continued for 6 days. Then the city council had her conducted into St. Vitus near Zabern, and there she was cured. But many others began to dance, and 34 men and women were involved within 4 days. But in spite of all of this, more than 400 persons were afflicted within 4 weeks. And Strasbourg was said to be spinning out of control. Now, the city's markets, the courtyards, the alleys, people dancing everywhere. And it's not even just, it was men, women, children, and they were described to be leaping, spinning, and collapsing. Some even danced and starved themselves to death. Some had strokes because of all of this. And then some just fell over and died.
Oh, shit.
And another poem that I included reads, "Many hundreds in Strasbourg began to dance and hop, women and men, in the public market, in alleys and streets, day and night. Many of them ate nothing, until at last the sickness left them. This affliction was called St. Vitus's dance." And of course, the church and authorities and everyone is like, what the fuck is happening? What is wrong with all these people? So at first they're like, let's just let them do their thing. We're going to let them dance it out. And then that's, people start dropping like flies, right? So in order to let them do that, they cleared guild halls, they set up spaces, and they even hired musicians. So they took a page out of one of the earlier interactions with this dancing plague. And they would even put on legit public concerts. Just, I guess, I don't know. I don't know if they thought they were going to help them or what. But Daniel Specklin wrote about this too and said, arrangements were made for them to dance in 2 marketplaces, and persons were specifically appointed to dance with them for payment to the music of drums and pipes. But all this was of no avail, and many danced themselves to death. So this just literally, I don't know if you're really encouraging it, but at least I guess for everyone who's watching in horror, it can be kind of enjoyable. I mean, that's a really morbid, weird thing to say, but people just kept dancing and no one could figure out why.
I just am like, how like you get a song in your head, like right now as you're talking about this, and I'm thinking of The Dancing Plague, Opalite by Taylor Swift is just playing over and over again in my head. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what if this was just like they had a jam in their head?
Some hymn was stuck in their brain and they were just getting it. It's fine.
That sounds terrible.
So we've mentioned St. Vitus a couple times. Well, I'm going to tell you about St. Vitus and the red shoes. When all of this shit started not working, the church is like, no, bitch. We're going to step in because we obviously need to do something more serious. And the priest decided that this was a curse from St. Vitus. And if you don't know who St. Vitus is, he's a Christian martyr who had a cult and was tied to seizures and involuntary movement. And dancers were then marched to his shrine at Severn, and while there, they did rituals and offerings. Some accounts say that the afflicted were made to wear red shoes, sometimes heated, sometimes blood-soaked. I'm like, well, if you're dancing for days on end, okay, I guess your heels are fucking dying.
Right.
But they did this as an act of penance. Now, this is really debated whether this is actually real or if this is just part of the folklore aspect of it. But I did find it was really interesting because the red shoes kept coming up. So I was like, definitely need to mention this. And then on August 10th, so we're like, basically, this happens all so fast within like basically a month, right? And that decree said every person must take care of his own people, and the various guilds should examine their members and send those who are ailing to St. Vitus, when, subsequently, a number of women and boys performed the, quote, evil dance. The people were advised to play for them in their homes. Later, the city authorities sent the sufferers to the hospitals, though they continued to send others to St. Vitus's chapel. And at this point, like I said, there's literally hundreds of people involved with this. At this point, 400 people were afflicted by this dancing plague shit. Yeah.
Damn.
And then, so fucking weird. How does this end? It just abruptly ends. It just stops. People just stop. By early September, everyone's fucking done. We're like, all right, we had our hot girl summer dancing, but also disgusting because think about it. They didn't have proper hygiene. They didn't have, the resources we have now. Think how sweaty and disgusting and how much BO and just like, I don't know. Me and Jess were talking. This is so gross. Sorry, guys. If you're eating, sorry. I was thinking about when we were talking about people training for marathons and half marathons and how they just shit themselves sometime. Yeah. I'm like, these people are dancing for days and days and days. They've got to be shitting themselves. I'm just saying.
I mean, unless they're like really...
But they would shit in the street anyway. So it was like, again, bridesmaid, just squat in the street, I guess. I don't fucking know.
I mean, literally, especially in France, they weren't necessarily known for their like hygiene. Like when they've like looked at the Palace of Versailles, like it smelled like piss and shit all the time. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just like, like lowly, like non-regal people. It was like
everyone.
The women of the court were like peeing themselves as they like walked.
So gross.
Yeah. What the fuck was happening? I'm so glad we have toilets and toilet paper.
Literally. Well, we do have some theories on what the fuck, because, this came out of nowhere and then stopped as abruptly as it arrived. So over the years, tons of historians and scientists have looked into this. People still debate this to this day. And I'm curious when I go through, because there's 5 theories that I've listed. I would love to hear what you thought. Mine is, I'll get to which one I think at the end. I won't spoil.
Okay.
So the first one is religious explanation. Literally, St. Vitus coming and punishing these people for, sinning and being awful humans. That's number 1.
Sinner.
Number 2. Mass psychogenic illness. So basically, psychologists argue that there's a huge psychological breakdown that can be triggered by the environment that they were in. So because, famine, plague, being afraid of Johann before his bitch ass died, and then just being afraid of the church in general, that religious fear. The next one is ergo poisoning. So a popular food back then was rye bread. And not so fun fact, rye bread contaminated with ergo fungus can cause hallucinations and spasms. It can also cause convulsions, but not necessarily weeks of dancing, unless they were just convulsing and they thought that was dancing, which who knows? The next one is presented by historian John Waller. He says trauma in the body, and he goes back to that whole the years of famine, kind of the same thing as the mass psychogenic illness, where it's not only the famine, but it's the stress of grain prices rising, all of the disease like syphilis, leprosy, the fucking plague, everything. So it was just everyone's bodies were just in this trauma thing their whole life, essentially, is kind of his argument. Mm-hmm. And this last one is more medical ideas from the time. Some doctors thought this was a case of hot blood that needed to be sweated out, and that might be the explanation on why they encouraged even more dancing and why they would do the music and everything like that. But it doesn't explain, why all these people have hot blood and then all of a sudden don't.
I'm going to start telling you, and I'm going to go to the gym, that I'm going to go work on my hot blood.
I love that for you. But it is still one of history's strangest mysteries, and people cannot ever come to a solid conclusion on what it is. So, to wrap us up for today, I would love to know, what do you think was the reasoning behind this very quick month of dancing?
I mean, I could see, if they ate something that was hallucinogenic, because that would make sense why it was on, a widespread scale, right? Because people, sharing food or crops or things like that, or the fungus getting into multiple crops. I can see that's kind of where my brain went with, or they just were having, a Jesse Spano moment, and the stress of life made them keep dancing. And they were just dancing it out, which is fine. Totally, weirder things could happen. This is the funnest playing I've ever heard of in my life. I mean, it's a little gross because, you mentioned, the whole pooping thing, the shitting themselves. But
right,
I'm hoping that it's maybe they were a little bit like a music festival and went away. I'm going to say that's a no. But idea is that it's something that they ingested that made them hallucinate. And then they were just dancing, which I love. I mean, it's totally the harmless thing. They're just, 6 days straight.
That's a lot.
Well, at first I was like, man, my legs would give out. But this was also in a time where people walked everywhere. Mm-hmm. So they were made a little sturdier than now, where I don't think I could do the Gilmore Girls 24-hour marathon of moving.
No way. Oh my God.
Right. But this was 6 days. Also, I want to know who was watching her for all 6 days, that she didn't take a break.
There's some retired ladies or some retired men. They just got their wooden rocking chairs set up. They just watching. But I agree. I think it is the ergo poisoning. I didn't necessarily include this because it wasn't in all of the sources, but some sources mentioned on top of them having the music and the extra dancers and, stuff like that, they were also providing food.
Oh.
And it's well, if they're providing bread and the bread has mold, and then it's just perpetuating it, because you'd be oh, well, if they ate this moldy bread at home, it would eventually wear out of their system, whatever.
Right.
But it's if they're continuously getting it, then that could be how she did last the 6 days, and how all these other people lasted multiple days. And there's a theory that people were faking that they were, quote, afflicted because they were poor and they wanted food, and they're these people are fucking acting like crazies and getting food, fuck it, I'm gonna do it too. And then snowballs. It's just really interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they eventually just started giving them not moldy bread, and that could be why it stopped. And a lot of people who were super infected, afflicted, whatever word, they dropped dead, because also think dehydration. They weren't, they didn't have their Stanleys like we do.
True.
A lot of times people were drinking wine and mead and, stuff like that. So it's they're already dehydrated as fuck.
Right.
So, even worse.
And if they're drinking water that's like close by, it also might be contaminated.
Oh, is contaminated. There's no if. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just a cesspool.
Contaminated with fecal material.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shit water.
I think if I was born during this time, I don't think I would survive well. I don't do well at the smell of poo.
Mm-mm.
I will just try not to think about it right now so that I don't gag, but like, I don't think I would have done well.
That's okay. That's why we're in where we are now. But anyways, now that I have grossed everybody out, that is going to go ahead and wrap us up for today. I hope you enjoyed my retelling on the dancing plague of 1518. I would love to know what you guys think and which theory you think is the correct one or would explain it the best. I want to know what you guys think of this. So let us know on socials and we will go ahead and sign off and we will see you back here on Sunday for another Sunday Scaries. Bye, guys.
Toodles.